It's Harrelson here, and I want to discuss with you something that I think is important, and we've stressed it many times, and that is lead follow-up. I tell you, lead follow-up is the opportunity to turn that real estate lead into an actual commission, so it's an area where your conversion is probably most impacted. So I want to share with you 3 things that you just must do in the area of lead follow-up. It's going to be a quick little video, so just bear with me. Number 1, when you're following up, you must always determine the lead's motivation. You got to find out, why are you selling? See, when you ask somebody, I'm just kind of curious, why are you selling? And they answer to you, well, I don't know, I just, if I could make some money, I'd sell, everything I have is for sale. Well, do they sound that motivated? Versus when you say, hey, why are you selling? And they say, well, we actually have to move in the next 30 days. My husband or myself, I just got a new job, I'm making quite a bit of money, I've got to move back up to Maryland, and we've got to have this thing sold. So, in asking the question, why are you selling, you can see that the different answers may give you some information, may clue you in as to what their motivation is, and actually how important selling their property is to them. That's going to be important, because when you follow up, if you know what their true motivation is, then you can use that to help them make better decisions. In other words, you may say something like this: hey, I understand that you need to get up to Maryland for your job relocation. So if you price the property right now at $200,000, knowing that's a little bit overpriced, then you have to understand that that property may take 6 months to sell. And you're going to be leaving in the next 30 days, and you're going to have somewhere to live up there. So if you move in the next 30 days but continue to own this for the next 6 months, you may actually have 2 payments, 2 mortgages, or at least 1 rent and 1 mortgage. So the expenses on that could get a little bit heavy. Why don't you go ahead and price your property around $192,000? Get this thing sold in the next 60 days and avoid all the additional expense that you're going to have to carry over the next 6 months. As a matter of fact, not having more than 1 mortgage over the next 6 months would be more savings than the slight adjustment in price that you would have to deal with, that you would have to do in order to get the property sold. You see how I'm using their motivation to influence them to do the right thing. So the key is when you're following up, you got to make sure you understand, determine what that motivation is, so you'll know what language, what to communicate to them that would most influence them to do the right thing. The second thing is you got to determine time frame. I kind of touched on that in the first example. For the person that has a job relocation, they really want to move fast. But you know what? You need to ask that question. When you're doing lead follow-up, ask the question, I'm just kind of curious, realistically, when would you like to have this thing sold? Well, it doesn't matter to me, maybe 8 or 9 months. Okay. Or versus somebody says, well, to be honest with you, I need to have this thing sold within the next 60 days. Totally different conversation. Someone who has no time frame probably has no motivation. Somebody has a short time frame, a short fuse to get something done, probably has really high motivation. Those are important things to know in order to, do the proper lead follow-up and convert these leads into commission checks. It's important. You need to know their motivation, and you need to know their time frame. And then, of course, the third thing is, once you know their motivation, once you know their time frame, which, of course, you're going to get all this information by asking the right questions in your prospecting and lead follow-up conversations with them. So the third thing is identifying solution. You must identify solutions. If you know the time frame, and you know why, what they're looking to accomplish, you know what their goals are, and you know when they want to get it done, you know what price they need, then it's your job to identify solutions. This is where you go in and you start thinking, well, how am I going to market this property? How am I going to price this property? And how am I going to deliver a powerful presentation where I can demonstrate not only my value as a professional real estate agent, but most important, where I can show them a strategy that will solve their problem. I can show them the solutions that it's going to take, the steps that it's going to take to actually reach their goals. And that's your job. Identify motivation, identify time frame, and determine time frame, determine motivation, and identify or determine the solutions. If you'll do that all inside of lead follow-up, you are sure to be successful. Now, there's something you shouldn't do in lead follow-up. And it's something that I've said before in previous videos. And what I wrote down here, it's a no-no, is failing to call enough. Listen, when you called this person and they said, yes, I'm thinking about selling, and they've told you they're motivated because they've got a job relocation, or they're motivated because they need a smaller house, whatever their motivation is, and they've told you their time frame, and you've identified the solutions, and they actually believe the solutions that you've identified are the solutions that are correct for their situation. When you've done all of that, then make sure you keep calling them. You know, I think you could continue to call somebody every day, every other day, until they either list their property or they say they're no longer going to list their property. You see, when you're calling them in lead follow-up, when you're calling them often, you're demonstrating to them how you're going to be for them. See, if you're aggressive, if you're actively pursuing them, then they're going to have confidence that when you're working for them, that you're going to do the same thing in pursuing the buyer in getting them to buy their home. See, what you demonstrate in your lead follow-up is exactly, if you demonstrate to them that you are going to follow up a lot, that you're good at follow-up, and that you're not afraid to ask for the business, then they're going to know that you're going to do that for them, and they're going to say, I want this person for the job. So don't be afraid. Just remember, failing to call them enough is giving them the wrong impression. Failing to call them enough is telling them, hey, look, I am not going to ask you for the business. I'm just going to let you go on your merry way, and if you need to do something, you call me. You know what? That's not the thing that you want to demonstrate, because what if they believe you're going to do that with the buyer that comes in their home? They're not going to hire you. So the must-dos are this: determine motivation, determine time frame, determine solutions. The no-no is calling too infrequently. That's it for lead follow-up today. You know, I keep shooting out these quick little videos to you because I just want to hammer in the importance of some of the key components of being successful, and lead follow-up is one of them. Talk to you soon.